was a fascinating question that we were talking about earlier, wasn't it? That what did you want to be known as when you came to uni? I remember my first day at uni. I remember what was on the radio when I went to uni on that first day, driving from hometown Warwick, where I grew up, driving down to Southampton in the car. And on the radio, whoever was on the radio on DJ that day, because there were loads of people texting in saying, "Oh, going to uni, going to start uni, really excited, etc., etc." They said, "Look, there are a certain type of people you will always meet when you go to uni. You'll always meet in whatever kind of social circles you're in, whether it's hall of residence or whatever else. You will always meet a keno. There will always be somebody who comes as a fresher at university who is just super keen about everything, and they end up as president of the boat club before they're finished. There'll also, in every kind of little kind of societal subset, be a muso. So the kind of person who turns up to uni with their own decks, the kind of person whose speakers you want to use for your music but for nobody else's. You'll always meet in every kind of little kind of subset of society, there'll always be a mother hen. It might not be a girl, but there'll always be somebody who kind of self-elects themselves as being responsible for everybody else. The kind of person who's self-appointedly going to look after everybody else when they go to their low patches. The reason I can remember that was on the radio the day that I went to uni, all those years ago, is because I then met those three people. On my corridor A3 at Chamberlain Halls at Southampton University, I met Alec. And Alec, having never rowed before in his life, within 6 months of arriving at university, was social secretary of the boat club. He was the archetypal keno. In the room right next to the kitchen, so that she had instant access to tea-making facilities when she needed to make some people feel better, was Fiona. And Fiona was the unequivocal mother hen of our little corridor at uni. And the guy in the room right next door to me, which was something of a mixed blessing, was George, who turned up at uni with bigger bass speakers than I had ever seen before in my life. Why is it that university tends to make these kind of people, or these kind of stereotypes of people at least? I guess it's kind of because we get to choose who we get to be when we come to uni, don't we? Many of life's kind of how we were known before gets left behind us. We get the chance to be known for who we want to be known as, to jump into our own identity, to choose what we want to be. And I think anybody, whatever identity that you take on, whether it's the keno, the mother hen, the muso, or whatever else, we want to be liked. At some level, we want people to approve of us. So when I went to uni, I wanted to be the buff guy. Now you can see that this plan did not work out well. I was kind of running against my own genetics in achieving this, but I was devoted to achieving it. But because I didn't actually have the physique to match what I wanted to be my identity, I gave it all the chat in the world. And so one day when we're chatting in the kitchen in our corridor, and for some reason, like, training came up, and I kind of waxed lyrical as the authority in all things on this subject that I wanted to be. And one of the guys on my corridor, a guy called Rob, who was just wonderfully blunt all the time, just said, "But Dave, you're really skinny." And as my kind of identity was ripped apart in front of me, the only thing that I could think of to go was to say, "But you should have seen how skinny I used to be." And that was how fragile my makeup, that was how fragile my existence of how I wanted to be liked was. But I did want to be liked, and I think we all do. You see, if I were to say we all want to be loved, and we create those identities because we want to be loved, it might sound a little extreme, mightn't it? But I think we can probably all at least acknowledge that we want to be liked. But that does come with a weird kind of fear, doesn't it? It leaves us slightly fearful. Because as we want to be liked, there's a fearfulness that we might not be. That we might not be. That we might present exactly the kind of identity that we want to present, and people might not approve of it. Or worse still, we might try and present the personality that we want to present, and people might see straight through it, see who we really are, and think we're far from likeable. Maybe that's why the lyrics from the musician Oren Lewis are haunting, when he says, "I'm on the outside, I'm looking in, and I can see through you, see your true colours, and inside you're ugly like me." I think this fearfulness that maybe seeps further into our identities than we would care to admit most of the time has left us with a kind of disconnection. Or maybe that disconnection is what we're really fearful. At university, we have more friends than we will have ever had before, or we will ever have again. And yet, the number one reason why people drop out of university is loneliness. We feel disconnected. We feel disconnected because all of the likedness and the approval that we longed for, we might not have. And whenever we want something and we feel like we've not been able to get it, or we feel like we've let ourselves down in achieving it, we're left with an emotion called guilt, aren't we? We're left with the emotion called guilt. And I think the contemporary response to the problem of guilt would be to say, stop it. You just don't need to feel guilty. Guilt is an unnecessary construct. It's the kind of thing that religious people, like people in the Christian Union, batter people down with. We just need to do away with guilt and not feel guilty for anything that we have done or that we haven't done that we wish we had done. But guilt still seems to be pervasive, no matter how much we deny it, don't we? I don't know if you've seen the film Inception. If you haven't, you really should. But don't worry, this is a spoiler-free zone. But at one point in that film, Leonardo DiCaprio's character, the main character called Cobb, is talking to his wife Moll, and Moll says to him, "You keep telling yourself what you think you know, but what do you believe? What do you feel?" And Cobb says, "Guilt. I feel guilt, Moll. No matter what I do, no matter how hopeless I am, no matter how confused, that guilt is always there, reminding me of the truth." Isn't it true that guilt can haunt us? We long for a solution to this disconnectedness that seems to be all around us in the world. We want people to say that they like us. More than that, we want approval, we want connectedness. We want people to see who we truly are, see us to our very core, not just to see a persona that we present, but we want to be seen to the very depths of who we are and to be greeted warmly. Not to be held out at arm's length. I've got a little niece called Edith, and I'm terrible with children, and so I can just about hold her for a little while, and then she'll do something that produces a fluid, and I just kind of walk around with her at arm's length, hoping for somebody with greater authority to take her off my hands. Do we maybe fear that people might see us and just want to hold us out at arm's length at disgustedness? Or even worse, just be treated with condemning abuse, like an abusive parent would give. Or to be condescended, like talking to a snooty academic. What we long for is to be liked, to be approved of. But maybe that disconnectedness that we feel from society is actually because there's a bigger kind of disconnectedness that's going on. A disconnectedness from somebody greater than just the peers around us, a disconnectedness from God himself. And if that's the case, and I appreciate that might be a big if, but if that is the case, then this question, and the answer to this question we're looking at tonight, how do we know that God loves us, becomes way more important, doesn't it? Because maybe, just maybe, in the answer to that question, we would find the solution to the problem of the disconnectedness that so many of us experience, and so many of us seem to feel. How do we really know that God loves us? Well, I guess, how do we know that anyone loves us? For a start, how do we know that anybody would love us in the first place? I think most of the time we would resort to history, wouldn't we? We would say, I know that so-and-so loves me because of this thing they did, or that thing they gave me. So a girlfriend could say about their boyfriend, I know that he loves me because he took me on this date. He did this thing for me over and over again. He treated me like this. We kind of appeal to history. And so it kind of presents with us this romantic idea, doesn't it, of a couple on a dinner date together. And one of these romantic moments going on where the guy gives the girl a little small jewellery box wrapped up nicely. And as she opens it with delight at the romance that's being experienced, she pulls out a long silver necklace, and then the excitement and the thrill drains and is greeted with bewilderment and confusion, as on the end of the necklace is a replica electric chair. And the man who she thought loved her seems to be a freak all of a sudden. But had that electric chair been a small silver cross, no eyebrows would have been raised. The cross isn't so strange. Mary J. Blige, Angelina Jolie, David Beckham, Justin Bieber all have tattoos of crosses at various points around their body. But this is a symbol of torture. The Roman cross was an excruciating, coincidentally it's where we get that word excruciating from, way of killing people. How has that become a positive image? How has that become a cultural institution? How have Christians made such a big deal about this thing that it has become something that we don't treat with the kind of shame that we would an electric chair? Sometimes people will say that all religions are basically the same. Some wise, intellectual, good communicator at some point in history came across some new kind of insight and teaching. Then they dedicated their whole life to teaching it to other people. And then, having spent their whole life doing that, they built a culture around themselves that would long outlast themselves. Well, that theory might have a degree of credibility if you're talking about Judaism or Buddhism or Islam, because Moses, Buddha, Muhammad all died as old men who dedicated their life to teaching. But Christianity's origin can't be explained that simply. Jesus died at age 33 after, at the very most, 3 years of teaching. He died having been rejected by the society in which he was in, having been betrayed by his closest friends. Let me read to you just a short passage from an account of Jesus' life, which is called John in the Bible. If you want to have a look at it yourself, the CEO have put some of these around the place. This is an account of Jesus' life called. This is John's Gospel. It's called Uncover. It's a chance for you to see for yourself what Jesus is like. If you want to see what Jesus is like, that's free for you to take away. Maybe ask somebody to read it with you. But this is the account that John writes about Jesus, the end of Jesus' life. Then Pilate took Jesus and flogged him. And the soldiers twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on his head, arrayed him in a purple robe. They came up to him saying, "Hail, King of the Jews," and struck him with their hands. Pilate went out again and said to the people gathered there, "See, I am bringing him out to you, that you may know that I find no guilt in him." So Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe. Pilate said to them, "Behold the man." When the chief priests and the officers saw him, they cried out, "Crucify him, crucify him." Pilate said to them, "Take him yourselves and crucify him, for I find no guilt in him." The Jews answered, "We have a law, and according to that law he ought to die, because he has made himself the Son of God." Then Pilate heard this. When Pilate heard this statement, he was even more afraid. He entered his headquarters again and said to Jesus, "Where are you from?" And Jesus gave him no answer. So Pilate said to him, You will not speak to me? Do you not know that I have the authority to release you, the authority to crucify you?" And Jesus answered him, "You would have no authority over me unless it were given to you from above. Therefore, he who delivered me over to you has a greater sin." From then on, Pilate sought to release him, but the Jews cried out, "If you release this man, you are not Caesar's friend. Everyone who makes himself a king opposes Caesar." When Pilate heard these words, he brought Jesus out and sat him down on the judgment seat that is called the stone pavement, and in Aramaic, Gabbatha. Now it was the day of preparation for the Passover. It was the 6th hour. He said to the Jews, "Behold your king." They cried out, "Away with him! Away with him! Crucify him!" Pilate said to them, "Shall I crucify your king?" The chief priests answered, "We have no king but Caesar." So he delivered him over to them to be crucified. And then later on, it goes on to say, when Jesus had received the sour wine, he said, "It is finished." And he bowed his head and gave up his spirit, and he died. The founder of Christianity died pathetically on a Roman cross. Yet Jesus has millions more followers than anyone else who has ever lived or died. Now, the explanation for that might be that things just got carried away with Jesus. Things just kind of snowballed, and he lost control of the situation. But is that how that account of Jesus' death reads? You've got Pilate, this person who should be in charge, but who is just held captive by fear from the kind of mob mentality that's going on around him, and fear of his superiors disapproving of the way he's doing things. You've got these religious leaders who are just trying to whip up a crowd into frenzy, and who find themselves frustrated and hamstrung by the authority that they wish they had, that they don't have, but they're kind of appealing to Pilate to do their dirty work for them. You have these soldiers who crucify Jesus, who are following orders which, if they themselves do not obey, they will be killed themselves. And yet, in the midst of all of it, Jesus walks through like he knows exactly what's going on, like he's in total control, like he saw it all coming, like there's something here that he wants to do. But it's still a death. The death of a man that seemed to promise so much. The death of a man who gave sight to the blind, who confronted corruption, who warmed the hearts of the oppressed. Why is it then that this is celebrated by Christians? Why is it that those 21 men dressed in orange who were executed on the north coast of Libya a couple of weeks ago were identified as people of the cross? Imagine a son going home to his mother and trying to persuade his mother as he stood in the kitchen that he really truly loves her. And it's because he really truly loves her that he is going to take the action that he is about to take, and then pulls out a gun and commits suicide in front of her. Does that seem like a loving action? Yet, weeks later, after the crucifixion of Jesus, his closest followers were running around saying that this cross was the greatest symbol of love that there had ever been. Why? Because this cross offered a real solution to the disconnectedness that so many of us experience today. It dealt with it. We want people to like us. We want people to approve of us, not just of who we are as we would present ourselves to be, but who we are in the very centre and the very core of our being. We want people to see who we really are and not hold us out at arm's length in disgust, not condemn us like an abusive parent, not sneer at us like a snooty academic, but to embrace us, to hold out their arms to us. And that is exactly what Jesus does on that cross. To a people messed up right to the inside, he offers a cure for all that disconnectedness and guilt in this world, and the cure he offers is forgiveness. But some people might say, well, why do we need a man dying on a cross in order to offer anybody forgiveness? Can't God just forgive? Isn't forgiveness God's business? Well, I'm married. I've been married a couple of years. Say that I broke all those wedding vows that I said to my wife a few years ago. Say theoretically that I was abusive and betraying towards her. So much so that I ran away. I ran off. And I committed adultery over and over again with multiple people. But then say that one day I'm convicted of my guilt. I become aware of all the mistakes I've made. And I walk home, tail between my legs, head held low. And I ask my wife to forgive me and to take me back. Can she forgive me? Yes. Will it be painful? incredibly. Forgiveness always involves a degree of pain being absorbed by one party or another. And the extent of the pain that is absorbed is always bigger, the greater the betrayal that has gone on. Maybe we don't just feel disconnected. Maybe we have been disconnected. Maybe we feel guilt because there's a reason to feel guilt. Maybe at the heart of us, we're not that perfect. We're not as perfect as we might like to be. Like Mole said to Cobb, "You keep telling me what you think, but what do you feel? What do you believe?" Maybe at the heart of us there is a problem. That's what Christianity calls sin. That's the idea that at the heart of us we're not all that good. At the heart of us we've rebelled against God and against His rule. And that's the same for everybody. The Times newspaper once ran a write-in question, asking readers to write in and say what did they think was wrong with the world. The shortest answer and the winning answer was written by G.K. Chesterton, who simply said, "Dear sir, what's wrong with the world? I am. I am." See, Christianity says that neither our guilt, our flawedness, our disconnection, neither does it not matter at all, and nor can we earn our way out of the problem. But it says that there is a way of being forgiven. Imagine again that story of a son going home to his mother. But as he opens the front door when he gets home, he finds that a burglar has broken into the house and that they're armed. And in those last few moments of rushed thinking and going on, he leaps in front of his mother as the burglar pulls the trigger on the gun that he's carrying, and he takes a bullet for his mother. He doesn't need to say anything or persuade her that he loves her, because she has seen how much she has loved him. On the cross, that is what Jesus does for us. Jesus takes our bullet. He takes our bullet for all that we have done wrong. How can we know that God loves us? Because He died for us. He loves us so much that He sees us right to the very core of our being. And instead of treating us with a disgustedness like holding out a sick baby, abusing us like an abusive parent, or sneering at us like a snooty academic, He loves us so much that He would forgive us. And He loves us so much that He couldn't bear to see us pay the price of that forgiveness. And so He bears it Himself instead. But do you see the humility that it would take to come to a God like that? I just want to finish by telling a short story written by an author called George Bernard Shaw, who wrote a long time ago. He writes about this character called Bill, who he simply describes as a rough customer. And Bill walks in to a shelter in West Ham in London in a rough state because his girlfriend Mog has left him for a guy called Fairmile. And Bill is raging as he is interacting with people in the shelter. He's full of anger and hatred. And in the shelter he meets one of Mog's friends, a girl called Jenny, who's volunteering in the shelter. And he blames everything that's gone wrong in his life on Jenny. He says that it is all her fault. He's convinced that she has persuaded Mog that he wasn't worth staying with. That she has persuaded Mog that she should go out with Fairmine. And in his rage and in his aggression, he grabs Jenny by the hair with one hand. And as he continues to shout at her, eventually he punches her in the face with his other hand, cutting her lip open. And he can't bear the scorn that he receives for doing it. As the other people in the shelter shout and rage about him, accuse him of how much of a coward he is for punching this young woman, knowing that Fairmine, the guy who's now with his girl, is way bigger than he is. Because everybody knows Fairmine would kick his ass if he really took the fight on that he should be doing. And so Bill can't take the scorn. He can't take the shame that builds up as people continue to abuse him for what he has done to Jenny and the coward that he's been. So eventually he says he's going to do something about it. He says he's going to confront Fairmine. He says, I'm going to spit in his face. And I punched Jenny in the face, and so I'm going to punch Fairmine in the face. And so he eventually confronts Fairmine, punches him in the face, but Fairmine won't take it. Fairmine won't bite back. Fairmine is not looking for a fight. And it drives Bill mad. And then, to make the matters worse, Jenny then comes up to him, and of all things, she apologises. She says that she's sorry for how escalated things got, that she appreciates that he was in a bad mood that night that he punched her, and she's sorry for all that's happened to him since then and all the scorn he's receiving. Bill replies, I don't want your forgiving, or anybody's. What I've done I'll pay for. I tried to get my own jaw broke to satisfy you. But it hadn't worked out. It hadn't paid off. And he's still experiencing the same scorn and shame he was before. So in order to kind of earn his respect back, Bill decides that he's going to try and he meets a friend who's got a small amount of debt. And so he says that he'll pay off his debt in the hope that this would redeem him. When he gets the chance, he says, here's your money, take it. And let's have no more forgiving. Let that be an end of it. This forgiving is jarring. I offered to pay. I can't do no more. Take it or leave it. And he throws the handful of pound coins on the table in front of him. I think George Bernard Shaw gets the heart of human pride is that we insist on paying for what we have done. We cannot stand the humiliation of acknowledging our bankruptcy and allowing somebody else to pay for us. The cross of Jesus Christ does exactly that. All that we ask to do is acknowledge our bankruptcy and ask Jesus to pay the price for us. He invites us to come and let God himself pay for all that we've done wrong. Just after that passage we just read is one more verse that I wanted to read to you. After these things, Joseph of Arimathea, who was a disciple of Jesus, but secretly, for fear of the Jews, asked Pilate that he might take away the body of Jesus. And Pilate gave him permission. So he came and took away the body. I don't know how you feel about this Jesus character. I don't know how you feel about this whole Christianity thing. You might be super sceptical and you've got way more questions to ask. If that's the case, please do text in. We want to give you those questions really fair treatment later. It might be that you want to know more, that you just feel like you couldn't really take Christianity seriously without knowing more. If that's the case, can I really encourage you, do take away that and uncover. Ask a mate who you've come along with today, or chat to the CU, somebody who is happy to read it with you. See what Jesus is really like. But maybe you want to respond in the way that this guy, Joseph of Arimathea, did. That Jesus has seemed appealing and intriguing before now. But if this cross and Jesus dying for us really offers a solution for the disconnectedness that so many of us has felt, maybe you think he's worth trusting in. And like Joseph of Arimathea, you don't want to make a big song and dance about it, but you see that would change things. That you no longer be curious in secret, but you want to follow publicly. If that's the case, what I'm going to do right now is just quickly say a short prayer. It's the kind of prayer that Christians will pray all the time. Simply saying, sorry, thank you, please. Sorry for all that we've done wrong. Thank you, God, for providing a way for us to know you, for saving us at the cross of Jesus Christ. Please, let my life now be all about you. I'm just going to say that, and you don't need to do anything magical or special, but if you want to echo those words in your heart, then do feel free to. Let me pray. God, we are sorry for all that we have done wrong, for all the disconnectedness that we have been responsible for all the sin and rebellion in our hearts. Thank you that you loved us so much that you sent Jesus to die for us in our place. Please, let my life be about you now and not about me. Amen.